In this video, we are going to learn about different types of functions. So here we have a function named add which accepts two parameters, num_a and num_b, and returns the sum of those numbers. So when a function is starting with the keyword function, that kind of function is known as function declaration. There is another kind of function known as function expression. So this is another type of function known as function expression. And the reason it is called function expression is because when you define a variable like num is equal to 21, what happens is you create a box, and inside that box you can put a value. So the value 21 is called expression because on the right hand side of equal to can only be an expression. An expression is anything that results into a value, something like 21 plus 20 results into 41. So this is an expression. But when you say if, it's not an expression. If is a statement. So that is the reason you cannot put it on the right hand side of equal to by saying num is equal to if. These are some of the rules about storing any kind of value inside variable. So here in JavaScript, functions are values. And what do I mean when I say functions are values? So there are different kinds of values in JavaScript like number, string, boolean, null, undefined, and object. And these are the only value that can come on the right hand side of equal to, so you can store them. In JavaScript, functions are objects. And you don't have to care about it right now. We'll understand that later on. You can do something like let obj is equal to an object. So object is a value. And because of that, object is also an expression. Similarly, functions are objects. And because object is a value, you can put on the right hand side of equal to. That is why function expressions exist in JavaScript. Because functions are objects and objects are values. And on the right hand side of equal to can only be a value. So when you define function like this, here you can see the function starts with the function keyword. But here it starts with the const keyword. So we define a variable named add numbers which has a value of functions. So let's look at this. So when we look at add, we'll see that is a function. Similarly, when we look at add number, we'll look at the same thing. Here, if we call add, we can call 12 and you'll get the output. Similarly, you can call add numbers, that is a function expression. So this type of function, which is stored inside a variable, is called function expression. Because here function is stored as an expression inside another variable. And whenever you define function expression, you will always call that function with the name of the variable, not with the name of the function. This whole thing is inside the box named add number, and from outside I can only access add numbers. And because of that reason, what you can do is this name is of no use. So whenever you're defining a function expression, you can avoid the name of the function. So you can also do it like this. So let's comment it out and refresh this and call the function add numbers. And it will work exactly how it was working earlier. The difference is this is a function expression and here the function became an anonymous function. It means that there is no name to this function. So this type of function expression is called anonymous function expression. And here you can do exact same thing how you were doing it in function declaration. That is, you can pass the parameter by using the same name, and here you can accept those parameters and return that or use those values. So here we saw that there are different kinds of function expressions. One kind of function expression is this, another is anonymous function expression. Similarly, there is another kind of function expression that exists in JavaScript, and that is also known as arrow function. So arrow function is a sort of way of writing anonymous function expression. And the way you make it short is by removing the keyword function from it. Const add numbers. Here you add a special symbol that is also known as arrow. So that is equal to and greater than arrow. So this is equivalent to writing this function. Now if you refresh it and call the function, you'll get exact same output. So first thing we did, we learned about function expression. Function expression is a way of storing function as a value inside a variable. And because you're storing it inside a variable, you can just remove the name of the function, and that became an anonymous function expression. And to write that function in the sorter form, you can use arrow function. And here we removed the function keyword and replaced it with arrow. So here it is add number is equal to, and this is your function expression. And the thing about arrow function is it will always be anonymous. You can never name an arrow function. Arrow function has multiple variants. So you can write the same function even in more sorter form by using a property that exists only in arrow function, known as implicit return. So instead of using return keyword, you can just say something like this. And what it means is, because your function is just ending in a single line, you can do implicit return. So JavaScript will return this value for you. You don't have to use return statement. So here you can see, whenever you use curly brackets, you will have to use return statement. But when you don't use curly brackets, arrow function will implicitly return the value. Let's go ahead and write another function using arrow function. So we'll say const square is equal to, it accepts a number, so I'll say num, and what I need to return is num into num. So this is equivalent of writing a function something like this, which accepts a value num and returns num into num. There are some differences that we'll figure it out later on, but for now, there is no difference between writing a function like this and writing a function like this. So this is known as arrow function, and it is using a property known as implicit return. And whenever you have multiple line of code, even in arrow function like this, you will have to use return statement. Another thing to notice here is arrow function will always be anonymous. So in this way, we learned about different types of function. The first kind of function was function declaration. That always starts with the function keyword. The second kind of function is function expression. And that is to store a function inside a variable as an expression, because on the right hand side of equal to can only be an expression. And because function is an object in JavaScript, an object is a value and value is an expression. So because of that, you can store a function inside a variable. And this is called function expression. Because you are storing the function inside a variable, you don't have to give a name to the function. And this kind of function is known as anonymous function expression. The next kind of anonymous function expression is using arrow function. So arrow function is a sort of way of writing the function, but instead of writing the keyword function, we replace it with arrow, that is equal to and greater than sign. Arrow function has a special property known as implicit return. So whenever you don't have curly brackets, you directly return the value without using the return statement. And this is known as function execution. So these are the different types of function that we learned about.